is Jessica Wilson. I work for U.S. Green Building Council Carolinas. I'm the only staff person here for the 2 states. So what does that mean? I cover everything from partner engagement, member engagement, event planning, marketing, social media, you name it. That's my role here in the Carolinas. And my territory is, of course, all the way from Charlotte down to Charleston, but I'm based here in Wilmington. So I'm certainly local, and I'm from Oak Island, born and raised. So a native species, which is very rare to find these days. So next on that, please. You can probably skip through my name too. Oh, so that's just David's.
So is yours further down?
I sent you mine.
So sorry. All right, here we go. I've got yours.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
It's
got
all right.
lots of PowerPoints rolling here.
Okay. Thank you for your help on this. Appreciate it. So you can go to slide 3. That'll work. You can skip that one too. All right. So, yeah. So if you're not familiar with USGBC, our mission is to transform the way communities and buildings are designed, built, and operated to enable a sustainable future for all. So equity is a huge piece of our mission and vision moving forward in the next 10 years. Over here to the left of your screen, you'll see the 4 pillars. So really, my work focuses around these 4 initiatives: resilience, health and wellness, equity, and sustainability. Next. But we're known for LEED. So LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And some of you may recognize our logo. That is essentially our plaque. So it's up in buildings, and we, our goal was to really transform the market. So next. This is a heat map of how many countries and territories we have LEED projects in. So we've been very successful in market transformation over the last 25 years to really push the green building needle forward. Next, please. Every day we certify 2.2 million square feet to LEED. And so what does that mean? We have a rating system that benchmarks and compares buildings to their peers. And we have credits and categories that award you for different initiatives, say in energy and atmosphere, indoor air quality. We have water efficiency, sustainable sites, innovative credits, and regional priority, excuse me. So it's kind of like a menu. I like to compare it to that, where you have certain prerequisites that you have to meet in order to even be considered for LEED certification. And then you have credits that you can pick from, like a menu, to rack up points. And then your points will put you in a specific category from certified all the way to platinum. Next, please. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we have LEED projects, and this is outdated. I mean, we have projects pop up every day, so it's likely more than 164 countries and territories at this point. Next. So we certify all buildings. So our slogan is all buildings in, and all buildings for all. So of course, we certify new buildings from BDNC, IDNC, which is interior design and construction, building design and construction. And then we certify existing buildings as well from our operations and maintenance rating system. And the way we track ongoing performance, which is really the focus of LEED from here on out, is to ensure that our buildings, whether they be existing or brand new, are performing as they should. So oftentimes we get a lot of feedback where LEED buildings may have energy performance gaps, or they're not operating as designed, right, initially planned. And there's many reasons for that. Usually it's, to be completely honest, building occupant, user, owner in that regard. But the way we can track that and give you real-time data and feedback on your building is through ongoing performance management. Next, please. So ARC is the way that we do that. Just to give you a little bit of background in case people in the room are not familiar at all with LEED. ARC is, from here on out, with any certified or registered LEED projects, we use this platform moving forward. And it's really nice because instead of a prescriptive path, this allows building owners and occupants to take incremental steps towards LEED certification. And again, it gives you this really nice real-time data for your building across 5 categories. And I'll show you those next. And it's free, by the way, for anyone to use, which is very helpful. So it tracks data across energy, water, waste, transportation, and human experience. And there's a whole lot incorporated into these categories, but just for the purpose of today's call, this is high-level overview. Next, please. And of course, you can manage performance across a global portfolio. So this is extremely helpful for, say, architecture firms that have 50 plus projects that they would like to manage the data as their buildings age out, essentially. And so you can have up to, I think, 50 projects in ARC. So it's a really helpful tool. And again, it's free. Next, please. So this is just a visual of what it looks like real time. And it spits out points, essentially. So you put in all your data, it syncs up with Energy Star Portfolio Manager, if any of you are familiar with that platform, in energy, water, and waste. And it's seamless integration. So it'll tell you where you're slated, essentially, on the LEED scale. And for example, if you scored a 40, you know, you'd already be LEED certified. If you scored anything above, you would fall into either a gold, silver, or platinum. Next. So it's designed to be simple. It really is. And it's designed so that our building managers can really analyze their data, track their data, because you'd be surprised how many large commercial buildings are not currently doing this. And especially hotels. That's one of my sector specific that I work in. And it's shocking how many people do not have building management platforms integrated into their building. And this is a way to really drive cost savings in the end, because once you can see what your energy use is for your building or your water use, then that allows you to make improvements, whether they be incremental or all at once, like a major retrofit, to save money in the end, right? And also potentially get LEED certified. So next. Now, I only was supposed to have 10 minutes, so I might go over a little bit because of the technical issues, but I wanted to highlight some local LEED buildings in Wilmington. So over here to the left is Southfront Apartments. They're LEED Gold. That's phase 1. So all of those apartments are LEED Gold certified. And in the middle there, I'm sure y'all recognize this because your awards were held here last year, if I'm not mistaken. That is the Wilmington Convention Center. And then to the right is Union Station, which is also LEED Gold. So very proud of the local LEED buildings. We have more than that. We have residential LEED certified projects. We have, I believe, Lower Cape Fear Life Care now instead of hospice is LEED as well. So there are a few iconic LEED buildings, and I think these 3 fit the bill. Next. So what is the value of LEED? Next. Sorry, usually I'd fly through these. We spend 90% of our time indoors. And for those of you that are familiar with sustainability, this is one of those iconic quotes, right? We use this all the time in our textbooks and all of our presentations. And now we all really feel the pain of this. I used to say, well, it depends on your trade. It depends, you know, all of us are stuck inside right now for the most part. So this is very crucial. The value of LEED is really about people, and buildings are meant for people. They're built for people. So while buildings have an incredible environmental impact, which I'll show next, in the end, they're built for us. So just to put in perspective the building footprint from an environmental lens, buildings across their entire footprint, and I'm talking schools, hospitals, homes, you name it, 12% of the overall water use from a human perspective is dedicated to that building sector. Then 39% of CO2 emissions is also related to the building sector. And I would argue that that is a low number at this point. 65% of waste, we're very wasteful. We got to figure out ways to be more innovative in our waste streams. But just to put this in perspective, the built environment consumes 71% of our energy usage. This is an incredible environmental issue, really. And buildings is the largest sector where you could have the highest impact. Next. This is a picture of just indoor air quality. So this is admittedly an older slide. I give this presentation often, and this was meant and intended for a school setting. So we try to correlate human health and green building and its impact, of course, on people with this particular picture. But it's extremely relevant given our current circumstances. I would be remiss if I didn't mention COVID-19 during this presentation and how indoor air quality and our indoor environments are pertinent and really a high priority right now when we talk about returning to the workplace and also just staying at home more, right? Next. This is money going down the drain, obviously. So another piece of value of LEED is you're really wasting money if you're not managing your building performance in some kind of way, because there's likely some small improvements with a return on investment of less than 3 years or 2 years. And when I say that to a building owner, that's what we call a no-brainer in green building. Any kind of improvements that have a return on investment for any type of property, whether it be a short-term property that you hold on to maybe for 7 years, like in the case of a hotel where the goal is usually to resell in about 7 years, or a commercial property, all the way down to a long-term investment like our municipal buildings, our schools, any federal buildings, right? It's very important that we, at least at the bare minimum from a green building perspective, manage our building performance. Next. So the LEED system goals is simple. It's very simple. It's to reduce contribution to global climate change, enhance individual human health, protect and restore water resources, protect and enhance biodiversity and ecosystem services, promote sustainable and regenerative design, and build a green economy. And of course, all of this is to enhance community and quality of life. Next. We may skip through some of these, but these are just some words that we typically use when we talk about LEED buildings, when we talk about green buildings, because language is also very important when we're having this conversation, because green can be a very polarizing word. My background is in literature, so I know all too well about the power of language and how that can alienate people or onboard people to a mission. So oftentimes I use any word but green, ironically, to talk about sustainable buildings. I talk about productive, I talk about high performance buildings, safe, healthy, inclusive. And this is very important when you're talking with clients and trying to pitch that case for sustainable measures. Next. But overall, LEED buildings perform better than your standard building. And I should just take a step back and say that you can be a high-performing building and not certified to LEED. We have tons of high-performance green buildings that are not LEED certified, and they still contribute positively to our environment. Energy savings usually are about 30% more than your standard peer building, depending on its size and function, of course. CO2 savings can range anywhere from 35 to 50%, water use savings 35 to 50, and waste cost savings 50 to 90. So again, here's just some stats to talk about the value. Next. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, sorry about that. But overall, and I'm going to kind of cut this off real quick to allow the other speakers on the line to talk a little bit about the benefits of green building holistically. But LEED building owners oftentimes talk about reduced operating costs, and that's for sure. When we're talking about green building, we're talking about the entire life of a building, and that's from the design phase, the conception phase, all the way through its end life. I mean, ideally, we have buildings that are preserved way in the future. But when speaking to architects, usually the goal is about 50 years average life of a building, right? If they get lucky enough to be in the historic registry, then they'll be protected, right? But if we're thinking 50 years, lower employee absenteeism is real. And that has a value to it. Higher resale value, when we're talking about commercial and residential, that proves to be true as well. Less time on the market, faster lease-up rates, and reduced risk. Liability is another thing. I think Sky's going to talk about that in a minute. Next. Okay, we can skip over that, and I'm happy to share these since these are just some quotes. It's one thing if I tell you that there's a benefit to LEED because I work for USGBC, right? We are a nonprofit, but it's another thing to hear from the market on the benefits of building to LEED standards. So this is just one from the University of North Texas. So most of their efficiencies will pay back for themselves within 8 years. And for a university, that's a very low ROI. And again, they're holding on to those properties. Those are long-term projects. Next. Okay, and this is, I will just highlight this. A lot of people think that it costs a lot more to build green or to build a sustainable home. It really depends. It's supposed to be an integrative process where you meet with project teams at the very beginning of your phase when you're designing a building or you're doing a major retrofit, and you have the contractor, you have the architect, you have your mechanical engineer. We're all at the same table with the building owner, and that is something that's very unique to the way that buildings are typically built. Oftentimes, people function in silos, and that just ends up having a reduced overall energy performance of your building in the end. communication is so important to green building. And it's every time I talk to project teams, that experience is invaluable. Everyone learns something new, your trades learn something new. So there's a whole another level of external benefits that happen because of this integrated process. And so that's, I think, one of the most beautiful things about green building in that process. Next. Okay. And finally, this is the last thing I'll say. If you do it right, of course, there are LEED Platinum buildings that cost more. It's just like any other building, right? It depends on the materials you select. It depends on the equipment you select. However, you can build a LEED building with less than 1% of the total project cost.
You have some more pants.
That's my son.
You have some more.
Yes, we have more pants. Okay. Next. And I think Sky's up next, so there shouldn't be too much. Yeah, to wrap everything up, green building is all about people. The building's impact on people, how it impacts our health, how it impacts our economy, how it impacts our environment. It all comes back down to how it impacts us. And so I think that's the heart of green building. And the goal of green building is to really ensure that we have safe, healthy, equitable communities for all.
Thank you, Jessica. Just to be clear, I know lots of people are doing Zoom meetings these days with no pants on. I'm just saying that I have pants and I'm using them. And I'm glad you guys have more pants over there, Jessica. I know that people are buying lots of shirts and no pants these days. So my name is Sky Dunning. I started a company in 2003 called Building Performance Specialists. I was attracted to the industry. I was very excited. I did a little research online about how mold has become such a problem in homes and what's being done about it. And it sort of became, I sort of became aware that there was kind of a movement going on to take a more systems approach to residential building. And I've always been, had a kind of problem solving mindset. Oh, I'm turning on my timer here so I know how long I've been going. Excuse me. And that really excited me. I really like taking advantage of efficiencies. I'm kind of a gearhead work on motorcycles and cars and things like that. And I've always been attracted to how I can improve the efficiency rather than just bolting on more parts, that sort of thing. And so the idea, you know, it never really occurred to me how houses got built and what the process was, or mostly what the process wasn't. And as I learned that there was a movement growing about, you know, taking a more systems approach and a more engineering approach to residential construction, I saw an opportunity. And like Jessica said, I had a computer business at the time, and I felt like it was satisfying, but it didn't really fulfill my need to be contributing, you know, to society and our problems. And not that I felt that I was going to save the world or anything, but if I was one more person out there doing the right thing, then, you know, it could make a small difference. So I started the company. Initially, it was very tough, honestly. In this area, there was very little awareness. People didn't know who I was or who the horse was that I rode in on, especially HVAC contractors. There were epic battles. I found that they were doing all kinds of crazy things and nobody understood what they were doing or was holding them accountable. And so when I came in, I was the first person to come in that was not an installer. And understandably, they were very upset with some of the things that we were telling other people they were doing. And there were years of battles. Now it's really has changed, and the HVAC contractors we work with really appreciate us and we appreciate them. I have come to respect them much more than I did at the beginning. It's a very difficult job. It was easy to point fingers at the beginning, honestly, without being aware of how difficult their job is and the positions they're often put in. So, oh, I need to mention our website. It is bpsgreenhomes.com. If you want to find out more about what we do, you can go there. So we work in new construction and existing homes, and I'm going to talk a little bit about new construction first. As I said, it became obvious that, you know, what typically happens with new construction is that there are a number of groups of people that work together that don't always communicate that well, as Jessica mentioned. And at the end, you get some rough approximation of what the plan was at the beginning. It's pretty common for me to be in a new construction meeting with an architect, a builder, a homeowner, maybe a HVAC contractor. and I'll turn to the architect and the homeowner and say, my job with this project is to make sure that you get the house that you designed in the beginning. In the end, we're going to ensure that that's the house you get. And then I'll turn to the contractor and the builder and say, my job is to make sure that during this project, you have a minimum of cost overruns and delays. And really, that comes down to communication over and over again. That's where the hiccups are, and that's where the opportunities are. And it's kind of tough in the residential world that they're not used to it so much. It can be a challenge. So I'm an energy rater. We're energy raters. Typically, an energy rater will do some software monitoring or software um, configuration of how the house is being built and what the score, similar to LEED, what the score is going to be at the end for any given project that you're certifying it for. And then they'll go on site a few times during construction to verify that things are being done properly and then have a final inspection. With me having sort of a problem solving mindset, I just saw problems everywhere and nobody was picking them up. So I just kept picking them up. And one of the things that we started doing early on was HVAC design. The load calculations weren't being done properly. That was leading to high humidity in the homes and all kinds of associated problems with energy efficiency and indoor air quality and comfort, and things like that. So our process is much more thorough than most energy raters. We do, typically on our projects, we do the HVAC design, we do duct design. We're on site 5 to 7 times rather than 3 to 4, which is more typical. And then at the end, we have a commissioning process where we just test everything and make sure that everything is functioning the way we thought it would before we went in. You know, we test all the bath fans, the HVAC system, all that stuff. And so in our projects, you kind of own us during the project. Call us with any questions you have, any difficulties, any problems. And it's been largely a great experience. We're luckily fortunate to work with clients that are mostly building higher end homes. If they see the value in what we're doing, they've got the money to invest in it. It does cost more upfront, typically. A lot of times because of the mistakes that would otherwise be made, though, we can often cover our costs and savings by preventing them from buying things that weren't really going to serve them well if they didn't get good advice. There is a lot of sales talk out there, you know, buy our windows and save 30%. Well, it's never that easy with homes. It just depends. Everything depends. So we have a process where we can value the upgrades that people are considering on making and show the ROI and make sure that they're getting the most out of their dollar for what their goals are. And we have some clients that want, you know, hurricane resilience, and that's their top priority. Some clients that are very sensitive to noise, they want a very, very quiet house. A lot of clients that want a healthy home. It doesn't matter how efficient your home is or how green it is or sustainable it is if it's making you sick and it's uncomfortable. And those places are out there. So generally speaking, that's what we focus on is health first, comfort, and then efficiency and sustainability. That's kind of the way we go and let the clients direct us in a different direction if they want. We certify homes for various programs. I did a little research into LEED early on, but really in residential, we get very, very few calls for LEED, and I just determined it wasn't advantageous for me to get that certification and keep it up. But hopefully that'll change in the future. But the Energy Star, the HERO program through utility, which is a great program, by the way, for anybody out there building homes, make sure you look into the HERO program from Progress Energy. It's cash on the table for building to a higher standard. Best program we've ever seen. And then we also work on existing homes. And this is really, really important because there are a lot more existing homes out there with a lot more significant problems, you know, especially since the codes have changed recently. Things have gotten much better with new homes. But we have a process where we go in, we get calls very commonly from people that are kind of at their wit's end. They've been trying to fix homes for years that have been having mold problems or comfort problems, and people have tried different things. And, you know, I kind of have a spiel I say, and when people call and I'll say, okay, I'm really sorry for these problems you've had, especially, you know, when it's your home. You want to feel safe and secure and taken care of. And I know how frustrating that can be. And the good news is you finally found the right people. Because most people don't realize we even exist, that somebody can come in and take a scientific approach to the problems you're having with your home. And I assure them that when we're done, we have a very thorough diagnostic process. It's not inexpensive, but when we're done, we will know what's going on with that house. There is no question. And if you take our advice, those problems will go away forever. And the relief, you know, sometimes people start crying on the phone when I tell them that, because it's been so long and they've sometimes spent so much money going in the wrong direction. So it's really, really rewarding to work on, you know, existing homes from that perspective. It's hard because sometimes you're telling them just the disaster that they have, that sometimes is much worse than they realize, but you also have the solutions, which is, you know, nice to be able to help people with. And I'm almost out of time. I guess the other things that I'll touch on is the importance of fresh air ventilation. This is required by code in commercial buildings. It is not required by code in residential homes. It is extremely important. We want to bring fresh air into any house, existing or new. We want to filter it on the way in with a filter that stops pollen, which is one of the things that we see that goes wrong a lot, is people put fresh air systems in, they don't put the right filter in, and you're not providing fresh air if you deliver pollen to allergy sufferers. You know, you have to make sure you get the details right. Like in LEED, you know, there's a lot of details in that. The devil's in the details, and that's a good example. And then water filtration, again, that's missed in most programs. I think LEED does cover that, but in most programs, it's the elephant in the room. And not just drinking water. When you shower in tap water and it's got chemical cocktail in it, when you're breathing that steam in, that goes right into your blood vessels. It's the fastest way to get the chemicals in your body. So it's very important to have whole house water filtration, so you're showering in clean water as well as having good drinking water. And then finally, something I've gotten into in the last 5 years or so, smart homes. We started monitoring crawl spaces for humidity, sealed crawl spaces, and then attics. And then we went on to flood sensors, and now we have controls, smart home controls. We control the ventilation. So when someone's not home, it's not ventilating. Hot water recirculation systems, on and on. So we're going towards having the residential version of what Jessica was talking about, of building controls. You know, the houses, at least the high-end houses now, are complicated enough that that you really need sort of a check engine light. You don't need to know all the details, but you need to know when something has gone wrong. And the average homeowner is just not in the position to do that anymore. So that's where we're headed with smart homes. That's the area that interests me most now, that I'm most excited about. It's really fun. You know, from my computer background, I really like geeking out on it and writing code and making it do things. But it's also, oh, there I am, I'm done. Yeah, it's also, I just think the way of the future. We want to be able to verify that the home is continuing to work properly as the years go on. I think that's it for me.
Thank you all so much for having me. Thrilled to be able to talk a little bit about the city of Wilmington and what we do in regard to green building and sustainability. You can go ahead to the next slide. I think I would just like to start off with just a little bit of history in regard to some of our sustainability measures, as well as some of the goals and programs that we have in place. As far back as 2007, the city actually adopted the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement, which was just accepting measures and taking steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions within the city. And then, following that, a couple of years later in 2009, we actually adopted the resolution to set a goal for reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 58% by 2050. There's certainly some interim steps prior to that, prior to 2050, but 58% is what we're looking at currently. And then just some of the existing buildings that are in place already within Wilmington that have earned the LEED certification. Jessica already mentioned the Wilmington Convention Center. We also have a pretty new fire station, which was commissioned and came online back in 2015, which earned LEED Silver. That's one of our I would say, in particular with the fire stations, I love seeing those pursue LEED certification, because it really is a good opportunity for us to kind of compare the various fire stations and really be able to show kind of the value of LEED. We're also strong advocates for the Duke Smart Saver program. I would certainly encourage any of you from the commercial building standpoint to take a look at that program if you haven't already, or if you're not familiar with it. It's a great program for getting actually money back in rebates for any energy efficiency measures that you design into a building, anywhere from LED lighting all the way up to, which I'll go into a little bit more later. They have actually a design assistance program that's free of cost. So definitely keep that one in mind. And currently, actually starting up next week is the Mayor's Clean Energy Task Force, where as the city and community as a whole, we're looking down the road, and we want to adopt a renewable energy goal for the city. There's quite a few cities around North Carolina that have already adopted a 100% renewable energy goal. Often it's in the like 2050 time frame as well. But I think Wilmington is right on the cusp of accepting that as a goal as well. So we're kicking off that task force next week. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, one of the fire stations that we're really proud of is our Cinema Drive fire station. It's just off Market Street. It actually replaced 2 fire stations with this more modern, with a lot more ability to serve the community. It was located in a part of town that needed greater coverage. The station is able to host a variety of services from the fire department. It's not just everything from emergency response to, I think some of the hazmat vehicles are actually located in this station as well. But we really kind of focused the design of this building on the triple bottom line. So we wanted to provide both environmental, social, and economic benefits to the community. Some of the features that helped us get there are things like reducing energy use by using solar thermal panels for both heating hot water, as well as there's radiant floor heating in the garage area as well, which those areas, particularly in the wintertime, are high energy users and really drive up the electric heating in the building. And so by the thermal hot water, they're able to actually kind of lower the temp settings in those buildings because the floor is so warm. It's also LED lighting with occupancy sensors throughout the building. Low VOC paints, coatings, and floors were utilized for improved indoor air quality, as well as 84% of the waste was from the construction of the building was diverted from the landfill, which as we know, we only have one landfill in the area. So when that runs out, it'll be a bad situation. So that's another thing we're focused on at the city, just around is ways to improve our recycling and diversion rates. So we are happy to do that with the construction of this facility. And since it's been opened since around 2015, 2016 timeframe, it's been the lowest energy use intensity fire station in the city, even though it's one of the busiest and certainly has a big crew on hand. The energy use intensity is the measure of kilowatt hours used per square foot. And so that really not only shows how energy efficient the building is, but how much money it's saving over the long run by just less electricity costs each month. Excuse me. And it really helps show that return on investment in the whole LEED process. Next slide. Other building I'd really like to feature is the new Haynes Lacewell Police and Fire Training Facility. Excuse me. I mentioned earlier the Duke Smart Saver program, and it's the design assistance program. We utilize that process from the very beginning of the initial meetings. As Jessica mentioned, the integrated process for designing and planning the building. We had the design assistance vendors join us for these early meetings in the design of the building, which really helped lay the groundwork for the goals that we wanted to achieve with the building. It's a pretty complex building. It has both indoor firing range in it, as well as driving simulators and training rooms. So it's a pretty diverse use and required quite a few different HVAC systems in order to handle the uses of the building, particularly in the firing range with lead dust and things like that. So yeah, some of the things that we designed into the building were extra high efficiency HVAC systems. We increased the R value of the entire building envelope of the building to reduce energy use, and actually reduced thermal load from heating by utilizing a white roof membrane. I know the architect was really kind of pushing for the traditional white membrane, black membrane, but in this climate in particular, that the heat load from the surface area of a building this size would have been really significant. So utilizing that white roof membrane has really been a big energy saver here with a finished facility now online. And just not only were we able to design the building, which so far has been operating beyond our expectations, we were also to get about nearly a $30,000 rebate from Duke Energy once they verified all the systems that were installed properly. So, next slide. So what's next, and what do we have looking at coming down the road? One of the things making its way through our sustainability committee right now is actually a green building policy, which is specifying a minimum of LEED silver for any new construction or major renovations. We hope to get that before the mayor and city council within the next few months, first part of this year, and hopefully we can get that policy passed. One of the big parts of our greenhouse gas portion of the pie is the emissions from our fleet. So we're looking extremely hard at what we can do to reduce emissions from fleet, and certainly moving towards electric vehicles is a big portion of that. We're actually applying for a grant right now for 300% electric waste vehicles. So kind of a perfect opportunity to begin electrifying our fleet. And as I mentioned, we're kicking off the Mayor's Clean Energy Task Force. Actually have another Zoom meeting today about our kickoff meeting, which is next Tuesday night. So I'm really excited about the steps that the task force is going to bring. It's going to be about a 6 to 9 month committee where we'll be providing a report back to the mayor and city council in regard to establishing a roadmap for our clean energy future. So that's all I have, and I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Jessica, I know you had some kind of prompts that we were gonna ask. If no one has any questions, feel free. Those that are with us, just kind of raise your hand and unmute yourself. We'll kind of go round robin, but maybe we could start with some of Jessica's questions.
Sure. I'll kick it off just really quick to both David and, well, David kind of alluded to what's next for the city, but Sky, could you talk a little bit more about some cool tech features for smart homes and smart buildings that people may be unaware of? I know Nest is popular, and with the integration of all of our technologies, I really see it as the future of building as well, and how that can help us make it easier, you know, in terms of CO2 emissions.
Yeah, so like I said, this is what I'm most excited about. And I guess, so our base system is humidity monitoring in sealed crawl spaces, sealed attics. Those are spaces, and for those people not familiar, that just means that the attic is not vented. The vents are eliminated and the insulation is put up against the roof deck. So the thermal envelope is all the way on the outside of the house around the roof instead of at the ceiling. And the same with the crawl space. There's no crawl space vents. Well, when you have spaces like that you're not normally in, it's really important to make sure that you know if something's going wrong. You know, especially in the case of a crawl space, if the humidity gets really high down there, by the time you realize there's a problem from the house, it's a disaster in the crawl. So you need some sort of monitoring system. The one that we use that the smart system enables us to do, you know, traditionally when we started doing that, we had a monitor down there that just had a little base station in the house that beeped, you know, when the humidity got high. Well, people would lose it. Or I had one customer tell me, yeah, that thing went off 6 weeks ago. What does it mean? Oh my God, it means you should have called me 6 weeks ago. So the smart home system allows us to have a system that checks itself. It tells us if it loses communication, if the batteries are getting low in the sensor, if the humidity gets too high, it emails us with an alert to let us know, us and our customer. So that's really powerful. And then we added flood sensors to those. So HVAC drain pans, water heater drain pans, laundry room. If there's any water in the drain pans or on the floor, again, they get an email, we get an email. Super valuable, both of these things, especially for second homes where people aren't there. Another thing that we monitor the humidity indoors as well through the thermostat or from smart sensors. And again, especially with second homes, we've had so many cases out on Figure 8 Island where the HVAC stops working in July, but nobody knows. And the house sits there for weeks with no HVAC, and then mold starts growing. And, you know, if you just have a system to alert you in that case, then you can get over there and take action. And then ventilation, I talked about, hot water recirculation, just controlling those a lot better. Typically, when fresh air ventilation was installed in a house, it would just run all the time, whether people were home or not. You go on vacation, your home is being ventilated, unless you had a really aware homeowner that, you know, turned it off, and then even more importantly, remembered to turn it back on when they got home, which is where they usually forgot. Instead, having it based on occupancy so that it works when they need it, and, you know, it works in a smart way, right? When they need it, not when they don't, so you're not wasting energy. That sort of thing. And then there's some other little ones. Well, one of my pet peeves, and now I'll stop, I think, is the smart bulbs and smart devices in general. So everybody has their little smart, you know, they got their smart garage door opener, they got their smart bulb, they got their smart toaster, whatever. If it's not integrated into a system, it's pretty limited as to what it can do. Not only that, but how many apps do you want to run your house? You know, we're really looking for a central dashboard where everything can be connected to each other, and occupant behavior or any other kind of circumstances can control these devices together as a system, right? And a really good example of this is smart bulbs. So you put in a smart bulb, usually it's the husband that does this. The man is geeking out and he gets the smart bulb and he puts it in, and then he uses the app to turn the lights on and off. And then the wife comes and turns the light off at the switch. Well, then the smart bulb doesn't work because there's no power on it. So then the husband yells at the wife, "Don't use the switch on the wall." And then she says, "How smart is this stupid smart stuff if I can't even use the switch on the wall?" And she's right. It's not working right if you can't actually use the stuff that's the most obvious and easy way to control it right on the wall. So we, through the use of smart switches and some more complicated things, I have a house in Oak Island where the homeowner bought, 30 of these smart bulbs all over the house they are, and then found that problem. And so through the use of smart switches, we have a way to allow them to use the switch on the wall or the app or the automated thing where he comes in from the garage and it automatically turns on the lights in the room that he enters and that kind of thing. So you get both. You get the best of both. You're doing it, again, controlling it in a smart way, truly smart way. So those are some examples, and there's just much more we're doing, and much more to come. I guess I'll say finally, the area we haven't got into yet that we're really trying to get to is the check engine light for the HVAC system. And the first thing I want out of that is I want it to tell us when the filters actually need to be changed, not at 1 month or 3 months, but when they need to get changed based on pressure. As the filter gets clogged, you see the pressure go up. At some point you say, oh, the filter needs to be changed. Wouldn't it be nice to know when it actually needs to be changed rather than just some artificial, arbitrary setting?
And I'm not sure if we have any questions. I know we're coming up, we have like 5 minutes left, right? So with that being said, I do want to add that this was like very high level. We got into some of the details with green building, but there are a ton of resources that I know between the three of us, we can share with anyone on the line depending on your sector. So if you're an interior designer, if you're in commercial real estate, regardless of where you're at, we have resources for you for sure. And since we only have a couple of minutes left, I'm not sure if we got any questions in the chat or if anyone wants to.
I know Laura had raised her hand. I think, Laura, do you have a question? Can you unmute yourself? Or if you can put it in the chat box.
Lower left, lower.
Mute myself. But
There you go.
Okay. Hey guys, first of all, thank you all so much for that. That was awesome. To a couple of points I wanted to make, and Sky, boy, I want to talk to you further. In terms of what Jessica was saying, a couple of things that she was saying, you know, about us being more in our homes. First of all, I can't get any cleaning products, but I'm sure people are all using the disinfectants, you know, throughout their house. And I believe that's adding to a lot of the sickness here too. So it's really important to think about those kind of things now that we're all stuck in the house. Sky, I wanted to mention, I'm very interested in what you were talking about, and I want to talk to you further about it offline, obviously. But one of the things, and by the way, I'm the one who sets up all the smart lighting switches in my house, and I put little pink dots on all the light switch that can't be turned off because everybody turns them off.
Right, there you go.
But one of the things I had kind of a nightmare with I built a home 3 years ago, and I had kind of a nightmare with the whole HVAC thing. And boy, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, as you are alluding to.
They have no idea. I have an idea.
Well, the homeowner has no idea.
No, exactly.
You know, in my situation, the HVAC people really messed up badly, and I could see it happening. They went out of business, and the builder spent so much more money having people come in to fix all of the mistakes they made. And I'm not even sure if I hired a separate company to evaluate. I'm not even sure if they were all, you know, but those are the kind of things that, you know, down the road, you pay hugely for that, you know, so that's what's, you know, it's so important to get that right from the beginning. And I want to get your information. I want to talk to you a little further about some of the things you talked about, but, you know, great service. And boy, I hope that you're seeing more. My biggest concern, is it what's your name? Is it Ingram?
Ingram, yes.
You were talking about the landfill, and you know that was one of my biggest concerns when I came down here, and I was seeing so much waste going on in the building, residential area. A lot of things that were just kind of being done quickly, and you know there were a lot of mistakes being made, so things got ripped up, and that's just a ton of extra stuff in the landfill, and that's a huge area that concerns me. So I think all of this stuff is so important, and I hope that we can somehow, but Jessica was saying that, you know, and I found this out through taking my sustainability class at Cape Fear. We don't really understand as the layperson, not just about sustainability so much, but how easy some measures are to integrate that are not expensive, and in some cases, you know, save you huge amounts of money. And I think the biggest factor is educating the public on that, you know, especially, you know, I feel like it's already happening in the commercial industry, but in the residential industry, I think education is just so important.
Right.
Yeah, I would say to that, first in regard to the landfill area, they do have a separate construction material recycling area now, where they accept any kind of especially from renovations and demo of places. They've got a separate area where you can take those kind of materials. So just a general FYI. In regard to the other area, I think one of the things that we stress, and it's why we have a pretty robust utility and data tracking, is just, you know, we can't manage what we don't measure. So we really stay on top of all of our utility uses on a monthly basis, and so we can track and measure kind of how all of our buildings are doing throughout the city. So, yeah, I think Jessica kind of mentioned it's surprising how many commercial properties out there. They have no idea kind of what their kind of ongoing energy usage looks like, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there that can be addressed and at very low cost.
So hopefully we will be able to email you guys some resource from our panelists. I'll have them, email us anything that they'd like to share with you all. We'll also have this recording that we're going to email out because I know a lot of people missed it that wanted to be here today. But thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. And make sure to check out our other upcoming events, capefearcrew.org/events. Any final last questions? I think we have about 30 seconds.
I will just say thank you. I want to say thank you to crew. Y'all are awesome. I've been able to join you in person a long time ago, it feels like, at this point. And I really appreciate the leadership that you have in Wilmington. And moreover, any way we can partner, I know you have amazing leaders in your organization that are already doing green building, like Big Sky Design and Elise Rocks. I mean, these are people that are great resources internally as well. So I just want to give them a shout out too.
Thank you. We love member shout outs and member-to-member deals. We really appreciate it. This was a very interesting topic that a lot of people wanted to hear about. So we appreciate your time, and we hope that you guys will be able to join us virtually, but maybe in the future some in-person events, hopefully by the fall. But thank you all so much, and we hope you have a wonderful day and see you at an event soon.